One ship the galaxy had seen wars before. Empires clashed, fleets burned, and planets were scarred forever. But when the Terrans entered the stage, they did something no one expected. They sent one ship, the Zorth Alliance, an empire of 100. Systems laughed at it. One ship against thousands of war cruisers? Madness? Arrogance? Or maybe desperation? Either way, the galaxy gathered in silence, watching, curious, waiting. The ship appeared in orbit above Garos, the capital world of Oi, the Zorth. It was sleek, angular, black as night, and silent. No escorts. No fleet. Just one. The galaxy's commentators mocked them on every channel. Primitive. Suicidal. Humans are desperate to be noticed. The Zorth commanders, smug in. Their pride allowed the transmission to be broadcast live across the Empire. They wanted everyone to see Earth's humiliation. And inside that ship stood one man. His name was Commander Elias. Rain, ex-soldier, ex-mechanic, ex-father. The war had taken everything from him. His wife, his daughter, his home on Europa Station. All burned in the Zorth's cleansing campaigns. And now he stood on the bridge of humanity's only ship, carrying their only hope. The ship's name was Deliverance. It wasn't built in shipyards. It wasn't commissioned by governments. It was cobbled together in secret by refugees, mechanics, outcasts, dreamers. A patchwork of alien salvage, stolen tech, and human stubbornness. Every piece had a story. Every bolt had been turned by someone who had lost everything. Elias stood in silence, staring at the glowing orb of Garos through the viewport. His hand rested on a simple locket around his neck, his daughter's face inside. He whispered, too. It like a prayer. Hold on, Anna, just a little longer. Behind him, a voice broke the silence. You still think this is possible? It was Koresh, an alien of scaled green skin and piercing golden eyes. Tall, thin, with 4 clawed fingers, tapping against the console. He was a Drakari exile, branded traitor for helping humans. Elias didn't look at him. It's not about possible. It's about necessary. Koresh's tail flicked nervously. They have fleets that blot out the stars. And you bring this. Elias finally turned, eyes hard. One ship is enough. If it's the right one. On the surface of Garos, the Zorth Empress herself ordered the broadcast. Her voice echoed across every world. Humans are weak. They come with a single vessel. Watch as they kneel before true power. The galaxy leaned forward in suspense. On Deliverance, alarms flickered to life. Dozens of Zorth warships rose from orbit, surrounding them in a cage of steel. Koresh swallowed. They're locking weapons. Elias stood straighter, his voice calm. Then let them. The galaxy wondered. Why had humanity sent one ship? They were about to find out. And then the guns roared. Asterisk the roar. The first salvo came from the Zorth. Fleet. Plasma cannons lit the void, streaks of fire blazing toward Deliverance. Every spectator expected the human ship to vanish in that first volley. But Deliverance did not burn. The shots curved veering wide, exploding harmlessly against empty space. The Zorth gunners blinked in confusion. Their targeting systems failed. Their fire control computers went blind. Koresh hissed in disbelief. They can't lock on. Elias gave a grim smile. That's because they're aiming at where we were, not where we are. The Deliverance moved faster than a ship its size should. Its hull shimmered, shifting like liquid metal, scattering sensors. It was as if the ship danced between the lines of fire. Koresh's jaw dropped. That's impossible. No, Elias said. That's human. The ship's guns came alive, but they weren't normal guns. They were rail cannons built from asteroid mining rigs, firing tungsten rods at a fraction of light speed. Weapons. The galaxy thought too crude, too brutal, too inefficient. The rods tore through the first Zorith cruiser. The ship split in half in an instant, molten metal spilling into space like blood. A shockwave rippled across the fleet. Billions watched. Stunned. The galaxy had mocked humans for using metal slugs in a plasma age. Too simple, too primitive, too barbaric. But simple worked. Simple destroyed. Koresh whispered, almost in awe. You built a ship of nightmares. Elias didn't answer. His eyes burned with quiet fury. No, we built a message. The Deliverance fired again. 2 more Zorith ships died. Panic rippled through the fleet. Commanders barked orders, scrambling to regroup. Ondaros, the Empress, leaned forward in her throne, her smug smile fading. Across the galaxy, voices shifted from mockery to fear. Is this real? 1 ship against them? What have the humans done? And then Deliverance unleashed its true weapon. Panels along its hull slid open, revealing long, jagged arrays of machinery alien tech fused with human engineering. A guttural hum filled the void, building to a roar. Space itself seemed to tremble. Koresh's golden eyes widened. Elias, tell me that isn't... It is, Elias said. The weapon fired. A beam of white fire lanced outward, not plasma. Not energy, but a focused stream of molten metal, propelled by magnetic acceleration, tearing through ships in a chain of destruction. 6 Zorith cruisers died in 1 heartbeat. The galaxy gasped. 1 ship. And the guns roared. The Deliverance was no warship. It was an executioner. And humanity had just made its opening statement. Asterisk, the price of fire. The battlefield was quiet now, except for the drifting corpses of broken ships. The Zorith fleet had pulled back, regrouping into a wider circle beyond Deliverance's range. The void was littered with glowing debris, torn hulls, and the silent wreckage of proud warships that had been invincible until now. Koresh exhaled slowly, the spines on his back flattening in disbelief. 9 ships. In less than a minute. His voice was low, reverent, and afraid all at once. You've made history, Elias. The galaxy will never forget this day. Elias didn't smile. He stared at the cracked view screen, jaw tight. His reflection looked older than his years-scarred, hollow-eyed, weighed down by ghosts. It's not victory, he said. Not yet. Because for every Zorith ship destroyed, hundreds more waited. The Deliverance had dealt a wound, but wounds could heal. The Zorith Empire would not forget, and it would not forgive. Koresh stepped closer. You should feel pride. You proved them wrong. Humanity has teeth. Elias turned sharply. Teeth don't bring my daughter back. The words hung heavy between them. Koresh lowered his gaze, ashamed. He had seen her image once, inside Elias's locket. A bright smile, a child who had laughed in the gardens of Europa Station before the Zorith cleansing ships came. Before fire consumed it all, Koresh tried again. What you did, it gives hope. To your people, to mine, to every world the Zorith. Enslaved, Elias closed his fist around the locket. Hope has a price. He wasn't exaggerating. On the tactical displays, Deliverance's hull integrity glowed in angry red patches. The railguns had overheated from the strain. The molten stream, weapon the Earthforged lance, had drained nearly half their reserves. Every victory came at the cost of burning themselves alive. And yet, Elias knew they had no choice. Humanity had no fleets, no allies, just 1 ship. Garos, the Empress's palace, throbbed with fury. The broadcast had not been cut. Billions across the galaxy had seen the Zorith humbled. Her voice, cold and venomous, filled the throne chamber. Enough games. She rose from her throne, her tall, obsidian crown shimmering with power. Summon the Oathkeepers. Prepare the solar spear. Advisors glanced nervously at each other. Your Radiance, the solar spear, has never been used in planetary orbit. It may. Do it, she snapped. I will show the galaxy what happens when vermin dare to bare fangs. Back aboard Deliverance, alarms blared again. Koresh's eyes widened as he read the scans. There. Elias, they're charging. Something massive. Energy spikes off the scale. Elias didn't flinch. The Empress is done watching. She's bringing out her god killer. Koresh hissed, his voice trembling. That weapon, if it fires, not even your ship will survive. Elias closed his eyes for half a heartbeat, feeling the weight of every soul who had built Deliverance. The miners who had welded its armor. The engineers who had smuggled alien parts in the dark. The refugees who had slept in freezing hangars so they could save one more ounce of fuel for the ship. One weapon had ended cities. One weapon had burned Europa Station. He had sworn Deliverance would be more than vengeance. It would be humanity's answer. But could it stand against the gods of war? Asterisk. The void outside began to glow as the Zorith weapon charged, a sun being born in orbit. Koresh turned to Elias, fear in his golden eyes. Tell me you have something left. Tell me Deliverance isn't done. Elias's lips parted, his voice low, steady, unyielding. We're not done. He touched the console, and deep within Deliverance, something stirred. Secret even Koresh had not seen the ship's guns roared again. The galaxy held its breath. Asterisk. Shadows of the past. The glow of the Zorith's weapon bled across the void like a second sun. Even the Deliverance's reinforced viewports dimmed to protect the crew's eyes. The solar spear, a relic of conquest, whispered about in fear, was awakening. Koresh's claws dug into the metal railing of the bridge. His golden eyes were wide. That isn't a weapon. That's a star, forged in a cage. If they fire it, Elias cut him off. I know. His voice was calm, but the muscles in his jaw twitched. Koresh turned, hissing. Then tell me, human, what trick do you think you still have? The ship is bleeding. The guns are overheated. Your fuel is down to 30%, and we're still standing. Elias's eyes burned, sharp as a blade. That's enough. The alien stared at him for a long moment, then gave a bitter laugh. I'll never understand you people. You should have died a dozen times over already. But here you stand, daring the gods. Elias didn't answer. His mind drifted, unbidden, back to the shadows of the past. Europa Station. 12 years ago, the station had been alive with light, laughter, and music. Elias remembered walking hand in hand with his daughter Anna through the hydroponic gardens. She had been 8, curious, asking questions about every plant, every star beyond the glass. Daddy, do you think aliens have gardens too? She had. Asked, of course, Elias had said, smiling. Life always finds a way to grow. But life had not found a way to survive. Not that day. The alarms had blared. The Zorith cleansing fleet had arrived. Their doctrine was simple. Purge what resists, enslave what submits. Elias had carried Anna through smoke-filled corridors, searching for his wife. He never found her. He barely escaped with his daughter, reaching an evacuation shuttle. But then, the station split open in fire. The shockwave ripped the shuttle apart. When he woke, floating in debris, Anna was gone. The Zorith had left only ashes. Koresh's memory. Koresh's past was different, but no less painful. The Drakari were proud, bound by blood oaths to the Zorith throne. Warriors who prided themselves on loyalty. Koresh had been born into that tradition. Raised to kill, raised to obey. But then he saw what his oaths truly meant. He saw Zorith overseers brand children with molten iron, chain them in labor camps. He saw whole species starve while the Empress bathed in gold. The final straw came when he was ordered to purge a human refugee ship. Koresh had boarded it, expecting soldiers. Instead, he found families. Starving, desperate, clinging to each other. And one child had looked up at him, eyes wide, not even screaming. Just tired. Karesh had lowered his weapon. And in that moment, he had betrayed his oaths. He helped the refugees escape, and from that day, he was hunted by his own people. The birth of deliverance years later, Elias and Koresh met in the shadows of a derelict shipyard orbiting Saturn. Humanity was fractured then, scattered across colonies. And hiding in deep space, the governments were gone. The military was shattered. But the refugees, miners, engineers, farmers, medics, they were still alive. And together, they built something no empire could predict. Deliverance. It was not born of power. It was born of desperation. Every panel, every wire, every weapon was stolen, traded, or salvaged. Alien thrusters fused with human mining rigs. Energy coils rewired with scavenged superconductors. An ugly patchwork miracle. But Elias had overseen every bolt. He had turned his grief into focus, his rage into fuel. And Koresh had stood by him, bringing forbidden knowledge of Zorith weaknesses. The day Deliverance launched, there were no speeches, no ceremonies. Just silence. Refugees stood together and watched the ship rise, their last hope vanishing into the dark. The memories faded, and Elias's focus snapped back to the present. The solar spear's glow filled the void, growing brighter, hungrier. Koresh swallowed. Hard. Elias, even if you fire every weapon at once, that thing will break us apart. Elias stepped toward the console. His hand hovered over a control Koresh had never seen before, buried beneath protective seals. He keyed in an override code dot deep within the ship. Machinery groaned. Armor plates shifted. A new array of emitters unfolded like steel wings. Koresh's eyes widened. What is that? The part we never told anyone about, Elias said. His voice was grim, almost reverent. A mirror, Koresh blinked. A mirror? Elias nodded. The Zorith believe they're invincible. They build weapons that burn like suns. But a sun can blind. A sun can be turned back on itself. Koresh stared, realization dawning. You mean you plan to reflect it? Elias's jaw tightened. If it works, we live. If it doesn't, before he could finish, the void lit. Up, the solar spear fired. A beam of pure, searing light erupted from the Zorith station, tearing across space toward Deliverance. Koresh gripped the console, voice breaking. Elias! Elias slammed his hand down. The ship's wings snapped into position, shimmering with refracted light, bending space around them. The galaxy watched as the human ship faced the fire of gods. The Deliverance was engulfed. Asterisk. Monsters in the dark. The light swallowed everything. For a moment, Deliverance seemed to vanish, consumed by the blazing fury of the solar spear. The galaxy's watchers held their breath, believing the human ship had been erased from existence. But then shadows moved in the fire. The mirror array flared white, bending and scattering the beam. Instead of ripping Deliverance apart, the energy split like water striking rock. Portions of the beam curved backward, slashing into the void directly into the Zorith's own fleet. 6 warships melted in seconds. HULLs vaporizing under their own weapons reflected fury. On the bridge, alarms screamed, sparks rained from the ceiling, and heat bled through the walls. Elias braced himself against the console, teeth clenched. Every bone in his body felt like it was shaking apart. Koresh roared, claws sinking into the floor plating. We can't hold it, Elias barked through the chaos. Hold it! The strain was unbearable. Deliverance's armor glowed red. Panels buckled. The mirror array fractured in places, sparks flaring across the wings. But then, the beam stopped. Silence. The void cleared. Deliverance still floated, scarred, smoking, but alive. Koresh slumped, panting, staring at the impossible. You reflected the solar spear. That shouldn't even be possible. Elias's chest heaved. Not possible, just necessary. The galaxy erupted in chaos. Billions of voices shouted across comms, channels, transmissions. Fear spread through empires. If one ship could survive the solar spear, what else could it do? But the Empress was not done. Her voice thundered across the fleet's channels. Enough toys, enough games. Bring them the beasts. Koresh froze, spines rising on his back. His voice was low, almost a growl. No, not the beasts. Elias turned. What are you talking about? Koresh's golden eyes glimmered with dread. The Oath spawn, monsters bred in the dark, flesh twisted with machinery, designed for one purpose, to devour ships from the inside out. As if summoned by his words, new signatures appeared on sensors. Dozens, then hundreds. Pods launched from the Zorith carriers. They cracked open in the void, releasing swarms of creatures that should not have existed. Some crawled on spindly metal limbs, their bodies pulsing with sickly green light. Others writhed like eels of steel and bone, wings of flesh flapping in the vacuum. They clung to the wreckage of destroyed ships, then leapt across the void toward deliverance. Koresh hissed, backing away from the viewport. They're sending them all. Elias, we need to run. But Elias didn't move. His eyes were locked on the swarm. No, if we run, they'll follow us to every human colony left. This ends here. The first wave hit, boarding the creatures. Slammed into Deliverance's hull, their claws punching through metal. Air hissed out in violent bursts as breaches opened across the ship. On the lower decks, alarms blared. Crew members shouted, weapons firing. The corridors became killing grounds. Asterisk, a medic named Juno, a wiry woman with grease-stained hands, dragged a rifle from a fallen comrade and fired down a hallway. The bullets tore through one of the Oath spawn, splattering black ichor across the walls. But another creature lunged from the ceiling, claws outstretched. Before it struck, a massive blast tore it apart. Koresh stood in the smoke, a heavy repeater clutched in his claws. His scales glistened with blood, some his, most not. He snarled, firing again, mowing down the swarm. Stay behind me, human. He roared. Juno spat blood and reloaded. Not a chance. Together they fought, side by side. The corridors echoed with screams, gunfire, and the unholy shrieks of the Oath spawn. On the bridge, Elias gripped the helm, piloting Deliverance with brutal precision. He swung the ship in wide arcs, scraping swarms of creatures against wreckage, crushing them in the gravity wells of broken ships, but more kept coming. The Zorith fleet had unleashed a tide with no end. One of the beasts smashed through the bridge's side door, its elongated jaws dripping with acid. Elias barely rolled aside as it snapped at him. The creature pinned him against the wall, claws digging into the metal near his head. Its breath was hot, rancid, its many eyes reflecting the bridge lights. Elias's hand scrambled for the pistol at his belt. The monster lunged, a blur of green scales crashed into it. Karesh. The Drakari tackled the beast, driving his claws into its throat. Black ichor sprayed across the floor. The creature screeched and writhed, but Koresh tore deeper, ripping it apart in a shower of gore. He stood over it, chest heaving, eyes blazing. I told you before, Elias. You're reckless. One day that will kill you. Elias raised his pistol and fired at another creature crawling through the vent. The shot blew its head apart. He looked back at Koresh, breathing hard. Not today. They exchanged a look. No words. Just a silent recognition. They were still alive. The reactor warning, but survival had a cost. The ship shuddered violently. Lights flickering. A new alarm screamed across the consoles, shrill, relentless. Koresh whipped his head toward the display. His eyes widened in horror. The reactor. It's overloading. Elias's blood ran cold. How bad? Koresh's voice cracked. Minutes, maybe less. The swarm outside clawed relentlessly at the hull. Inside, the ship burned, bleeding from 100 wounds. And now, its own heart was about to tear it apart. Elias stared at the console, at the blinking red warning, at the hopelessness of it. He thought of Anna, of the refugees who had built this ship with their last strength, of humanity's scattered survivors, watching this battle right now, waiting for hope. He set his jaw. We're not dying here. The choice the ship's alarm screamed louder than the shrieks of the Oathspawn tearing at its hull. The reactor's red warning lights pulsed across the bridge like a heartbeat fast, frantic, dying. Koresh slammed his claws against the console. We have to eject the core before it goes critical. If we don't, Elias shook his head. His face was pale, but his voice steady. If we eject the core, Deliverance is dead. And if Deliverance dies, humanity dies with it. Koresh's golden eyes flared. Better to live and fight another day than burn here. Elias turned sharply. There is no other day. The words cut through the chaos, silencing even the bridge crew. Juno, blood-streaked and panting from the lower decks, stood in the doorway. Listening, Elias's voice cracked, not with fear, but with raw truth. You think the Zorith will let us limp away? They'll hunt us. They'll hunt every refugee colony left in the dark. We can't run. We finish this here now. The bridge was quiet except for the alarms. Koresh stared at him, his jaw tightening. Then you mean to die. Elias's hand went to the locket around his neck. He opened it, staring at Anna's face. For a moment, his eyes softened. I mean to make sure she didn't die for nothing. Koresh hissed, his tail lashing the floor. You humans are insane, reckless. You charge at death as if it's a friend. Elias met his gaze. No, we charge because if we don't, death finds us anyway. For a long heartbeat, Koresh didn't answer. Then, slowly, he lowered his head. Then I'll die with you? Elias gave the faintest nod. Not yet. We still have one shot. The plan, the tactical map, showed Garo's the Zorith capital world, wrapped in layers of orbital defenses, fleets, and planetary shields. Untouchable, unconquerable. Unless you had nothing left to lose, Elias pointed at the glowing world. We take Deliverance straight into their throat, punch through their fleet, ram their defense grid, and strike the Empress herself. The bridge crew erupted in protest. That's suicide. They'll tear us apart before we get close. We can't, Elias raised his hand. Silence fell. They think we're running. They think we're afraid. But they don't understand us. They don't understand why we built Deliverance. It was never to run, never to hide. It was built for this. One ship, one chance. Juno spoke softly, her voice trembling but firm. If we're going to burn anyway, better to burn where it matters. Koresh let out a long hiss. You've infected her too. Humanity is a plague of stubbornness. Elias almost smiled. That's the first true thing you've said today. The charged Deliverance roared to life. Thrusters burned white, engines screaming as the ship turned toward Garos. The swarm of Oathspawn still clung to the hull, but the ship's acceleration flung many of them into the void. Railguns fired, sweeping the rest off like insects in a storm. The Zorith fleet scrambled to intercept. Warships repositioned, forming walls of steel and fire. Planetary defense cannons powered up, casting lines of light across orbit. The galaxy watched in silence as one broken human ship charged a world defended by thousands. The Empress appeared on coms. Her image filled Deliverance's screens tall. Adorned in black armor, her crown glinting with cruel light. Her voice dripped with scorn. "Human, you dare." Elias stared at her, unflinching. "I don't dare. I choose." She tilted her head, amused. "You think one ship can destroy an empire?" "No," Elias said. His voice was cold, resolute. "But it can destroy you." The Empress's eyes narrowed. "Then let us end this in the old way. A duel. You and I, your life. For the survival of your people. Accept, and I will spare them. Refuse, and I burn your earth from the stars." Gasps filled the bridge. Juno's face went pale. "Elias, she's lying. She'll never spare Earth." Koresh snarled. "It's a trap. She wants you dead in front of the galaxy." Elias didn't move. His eyes locked on the Empress. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, "I accept." Koresh roared. "You fool." But Elias's face was calm, almost serene. "This isn't her duel. It's ours. One ship, one chance." The Empress's image shimmered across Deliverances. Bridge, larger than life. Her eyes burned with cruel amusement. "Come, human. Face me before all who watch. Show them how your kind dies." The galaxy tuned in. Every screen, every holofeed, every channel carried the signal. Billions of eyes watched as humanity's fate hung on one man. Elias stood. He adjusted the battered plating of his combat suit, holstered his sidearm, and touched the locket one last time. Anna's smiling face glimmered inside. He whispered, "For you." Koresh stepped forward, grabbing Elias's arm with clawed fingers. His golden eyes shone with desperation. "Don't do this. She is a monster. You can't win against her." Elias met his gaze, steady as stone. "Maybe not. But if I don't try, no one will." Koresh's voice cracked. "Elias, I betrayed my people to fight by your side. Don't make me watch you throw yourself away." Elias placed his hand on Koresh's shoulder. For the first time, his voice softened. "Then don't watch me die. Watch me fight." The duel, Elias, was transported to the surface of Garos, the heart of the Zorith Empire. The dueling ground was a massive plaza of black stone, ringed with towers of obsidian. The galaxy's leaders watched from floating thrones above, their faces projected. To every world, the Empress awaited him at the center, clad in black armor etched with glowing runes. She drew a blade of pure energy, humming with death. Elias walked forward with only a steel-forged human sword, old-fashioned, simple, almost laughable in its crudity. The galaxy mocked him instantly. A sword? Against the Empress? But Elias gripped it firmly, planting his boots on the stone. "Let's finish this." The Empress smirked. "So be it." She struck first. Her blade flashed in arcs of fire, each swing heavy with strength, enhanced by exoskeletal servos. Elias barely dodged, sparks flying as steel clashed with energy. The impact rattled his bones. His muscles screamed. But he kept moving, rolling, ducking, countering with swift strikes that forced the Empress to adjust. The crowd jeered. "Pathetic." "Human. End him." The Empress lunged, driving him back. "You are nothing. A broken species. A whisper in the dark." Elias blocked, steel shrieking against plasma. His arms shook, blood dripping from his side where a glancing blow had struck. He staggered but held his ground. His voice came ragged but firm. "Maybe," but whispers spread. The Empress snarled, swinging down with a killing strike. Elias sidestepped, his sword catching hers just enough to divert it. He twisted, steel biting into the seam of her armor. The galaxy gasped as blood sprayed. Across the stone, the Empress reeled back, fury blazing in her eyes. "You dare wound me?" Elias spat blood, raising his sword again. "You dared touch my daughter." Above in orbit while the duel raged below, Deliverance fought its last battle. The ship roared through the Zorith fleet, every gun blazing. Rail cannons shredded cruisers. The Earth-forged lance burned holes through carriers. But the ship was breaking apart. Panels tore loose. Fires raged across the decks. Juno screamed over coms. Hull breach on decks 4 through 9. Koresh, soaked in blood and ichor, fired a repeater into swarming Oathspawn. His voice thundered. "Hold the line. He fights for us, we fight." For him, the crew rallied. Humans, exiles, refugees, all of them fought like demons. Deliverance became a storm, tearing through impossible odds. But the reactor's countdown ticked lower. Minutes left. Asterisk the endgame on Garos. The Empress pressed harder, her blade a storm of fire. Elias's body was failing. His breaths came ragged. His armor was shattered, his sword chipped, but his eyes never wavered. The Empress raised her blade. For the final blow. "Die, human." Elias whispered, "Not today." He stepped into her strike, letting it slash across his side. Pain seared him, but he drove his own sword forward with all his strength. Steel pierced her chest. Asterisk. The endgame on Garos. The Empress pressed harder, her blade a storm of fire. Elias's body was failing. His breaths came ragged. His armor was shattered, his sword chipped, but his eyes never wavered. The Empress raised her blade for the final blow. "Die, human." Elias whispered, "Not today." He stepped into her strike, letting it slash across his side. Pain seared him, but he drove his own sword forward with all his strength. Steel pierced her chest. Asterisk.